the hottest picture I've ever seen in a Walmart. Halle Berry meets Rosario Dawson.
Yeah.
You think so? Mm-hmm. Oh, meow. Okay. So the reason I did that is because that's how this clip will start.
That's good.
Okay. Cheap. I admit it.
No, that's pretty cool.
All right, so this is number 5. This is part 4, part 5 or something. Okay, so what we need to figure out, oh shit, why am I flipping it back up? Hi. Okay, so what we need to figure out is how, here, let's walk. Let's get a little bit out of here. How is a population going to, I'm doing the camera work, you hold this shit.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, this qualifies as camera work. How is a population going to not only stabilize, but shrink when, without causing increased starvation? And I suppose we need to have a relatively quick conversation about this because we've been dragging this out.
Right.
But it's also kind of important, so I suppose we need to, actually hash it out a little bit. Okay, here, now.
Suddenly I'm way more comfortable around books. I don't know.
Oh, dude, me too, I know. Bookstore conversations, you can dump all that shit. Okay, so let's kind of maybe just sit down and see if we can figure this out real quick. Okay, so you got, first we figured out that if you want 50,000 rats in a cage, you can't do that. Let's say we turned this Walmart that we're in into a rat cage. Are we ever going to have 50,000 rats in here if we're putting in 5 pounds of food a day?
50,000, 5 pounds. I don't really know how much rats eat. I think your point is no. So you're looking to have to...
Yeah, it's a leading question, but yeah.
You're looking to have to put more food in if you want more rats. And it works the other way as well. Take more food out, you get less rats.
So there's no way we're ever going to have a human population of 10 billion if we actually stabilize global food production.
Yes.
Okay. And that's kind of obvious,
That's
right?
just the way nature works. It's supposed to work that way.
Right, because what would these people be made out of if they weren't made out of the extra food that we were making?
Right.
So if we're not making, okay. So I guess we'll just have to skip ahead. I mean, a lot.
There's the question, though, of populations that get out of control when there's just too many of them. Like, too many deer that eat each other, out of... You know what I mean?
Sure, the deer that eat each other, of course.
Could have phrased it better, but you know what I mean.
Well, it reminds me of an experiment. They put some reindeer on an island off Canada in the 60s, and some ecologists estimated that the island could sustain a population of like 3,400 reindeer, and they put like 60 reindeer on this island, or 47 or something. Then they came back a few years later, it was more. They came back later, it was more. They came back later, it was more. Well, they came back later and it was starting to reach the estimated population of 3,400. Well, they came back later and it was more. They came back later and it was more. And what ultimately happened was they peaked at a population of like double the estimated carrying capacity of like 6,000 reindeer. And then they came back another 5 years later. Guess what the population was?
3,400?
No, it was back down to like 40.
Oh, wow.
They peaked and crashed.
Yeah.
Now that's what we're trying to avoid
Scary.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is scary. So that's kind of something we don't want here on planet Earth with humans.
Right.
Island Earth, I guess we
Yes.
could call it. So how can we avoid that? Help me help our audience figure that out.
Right. And I believe your next point was going to be, how do you reduce, not only stabilize, but reduce a population without causing mass starvation? And that's to do it very, very carefully and slowly with careful distribution so that your starving men or mice get the food that they need, and that the ones that are doing really well already can probably afford to have a little bit less. But if it's done quickly, I mean, you are going to have starvation. If it's done slowly, however, and give the population time to adjust, the natural death, the natural sicknesses, the natural adjustment of, you know, the female system to having less pups, all that stuff, is going to happen on its own.
Okay. So one way or another, if we stabilize food, global food production, what's going to happen?
The population will stabilize as well.
Okay, so there's no way we could have continued population growth with stabilized food production. At least not for long,
Yeah,
right?
no.
There could be a lag effect.
Not to say that that it's absolutely out of the question that somebody might go hungry. I mean,
Right.
it's a possibility. But
Right.
if it's done right and it's done well, I think we can handle it.
Yeah. So, do you think it would be worth it if we had, let's say that we have a current percentage on the planet of 0.01 or 0.1% of the planet's population is hungry, quote unquote hungry. Now, obviously, they're not starving. Anybody who's alive is getting enough food. I'm not saying they're getting enough to be happy. I'm saying they're getting enough to be alive. And we can't think too mythologically about this one. And this
Right.
one is a really trippy topic because it gets really creepy
Oh.
talking about the realities of it. Acknowledging that anyone who's alive is eating enough food. They might not be eating enough food this week, but they're eating enough food this year. You know,
What if they're dying, though?
okay, then they're dying. But they don't die for a year. You don't die of starvation for your whole life.
Yeah.
You're not an 18-year-old who's been dying of starvation for 18 years.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work that way.
Okay. Well, make your point and then maybe I'll decide whether I want to argue with it.
All right, yeah. I mean, outside of the realm of like airtarianism, people need food to live. So, well, all right. My point is that if we actually want to survive on this planet, if we even bother to start listening to ecologists or other specialists who might give us an estimate of the carrying capacity of the planet, and we start saying, okay, island Earth can carry about X million or X billion human beings sustainably, like forever. And we start actually saying, okay, we need to reduce our population to that point at some point, and we certainly need to stabilize it right away. That's one thing we don't want to do delicately or slowly. We need to stabilize population growth as quickly as possible. We need this information to spread as quickly as possible. That's why I'm doing this. Because the sooner we have a tipping point or a critical mass of people realize that there's no
Guys,
hope.
I can't have you guys sitting on the floor.
Oh, okay.
Okay, just because we are open. So.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Wow, are we gonna have to go to part 5? This is already 7 minutes. I feel like it's hopeless.
Get to it, man.
I know, if we cut back slowly. Okay, so to go back to the rats in the cage, if we have way too many rats, okay, let's say we turned Walmart into a giant rat cage and we had 1 million rats in here, and we were putting in 70 or 100 kilos of food, or no, 500 kilos of food every day to sustain these rats. Well, and we want to stabilize the population because we keep putting in more and more food. All we have to do is keep putting in more and more food. And then the population will stabilize at whatever is sustainable on the amount of food that we're putting in. Some number of rats will eat 500 kilos of food a day, and twice that number will never ever come from 500 kilos a day. But if we want to reduce it without causing any significant additional starvation that may or may not already be happening from sickness in the corners of Walmart where the rats have a hell of a time getting any food, all we need to do is say, okay, well then, what can your average rat live without in a given day? Can it live without, if you give an average rat 1% less food tomorrow than you gave it today, is it going to die
Right,
of
no.
starvation? Is it
Probably
even
not.
going to be hungry?
Yeah.
Okay, so 1% less. Now, if you reduce the 500 kilos by 1% a week or 1% a day, that's only 100 weeks until you've reduced it. Well, okay, I'm getting my math extremely wrong. I know that statistics doesn't work that way because you keep doing a percentage of reduced thing, but blah, blah, blah. The point is, you could cut 500 kilos back by 50 kilos a week for 52 weeks. And the way rats reproduce, you have to figure it out. and I know I sound retarded right now, like I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
That's how I felt when I was trying to explain it.
Oh my God. One way or another, there is a sustainable way to reduce your population of rats without starving them out, without causing any significant extra starving.
And it's not by doing it slowly, like you said earlier?
It is by doing it
Okay, that's
slowly.
what I
We need to
thought.
stabilize immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, as quick as we possibly
and then
can.
Start cutting back.
And then start cutting back.
Yeah.
It's not at all unreasonable to think that within, I don't know how many generations, but we need to start even thinking about it.
Right.
Even bothering to think along the right lines. And the bigger point.
Considering how much we have that we don't need, it's really not that outlandish to consider that might work. You know,
Huh.
we just have so much that we don't need, especially here. You know, not all over, but you know, take some of that, distribute it, and we could probably even cut it back a little bit. And
That's a really good point. I mean, improved distribution, we could cut the food production in half right away, almost. But that's with
Probably.
utopian schemes of perfect food production.
right. Well,
Distribution. What I'm trying to get at is non-utopian stuff.
so back to sustainability, like teaching people how to, you know, farm properly, or you know, I mean, I've heard some people say that. I don't know.
We need to raise consciousness.
I know I'm not getting there.